my favorite. So yeah, the economic model is my favorite out of the four if I have to pick one. And we are going to jump straight in. So let me see if I can share the screen. And we're jumping in. Okay. Everyone getting ready for Thanksgiving week?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Make sure you have a notepad and your calculator handy, because if you already have your unit number, when I go through the mathematical examples, do the math alongside with me. A lot of us, we've been doing them on your calls in the last 2 weeks, and a bunch of you are going to do it next week, but go ahead and jump in and get ahead of it now. Okay. All right. So economic model, we are going to dive in. And as I've been doing with this, what I think is fun series, I'm basing the initial example on 1,000 homes sold in 2022. And I do have one team that is currently, that is their goal next year. And so some of what I'm sharing with you in these sessions is from the business planning that we've been working on for that team in particular. All right. And I figured, you know, maybe one of you will see this and be like, maybe I should sell 1,000 homes next year, and you would want to jump in. I just thought it was a fun example. All right, so the economic model in its very purest form, it is the formula that describes the way your business works. Some people think it is, you know, just the money or just the numbers, or that it's depersonalized, you know, because, oh, it's just, you know, very mathematical. It is mathematical. However, when you really, and you'll see it in the descriptions I have here, when you flesh out the descriptions and you actually treat your business as if it has a listing division and as if it has a buyer division. For some of you, there's also an investor slash flipping, you know, division. I also coach some commercial. So there's a commercial division. And many of you do farms and ranch, which some people call commercial, but you know, so like if you look at your whole business and you actually treat each division as a division, this, the economic model, is the way that you describe how your business works and what each division does. Okay. And I don't care if you're one agent with an admin. I don't care if you're one agent with a TC. I don't care if you're on someone else's team and yet you're responsible for your own production and growth. Every single one of you can have your own economic model based on your own goals. So I wanted to take a minute before we jumped in, and I wanted to go over what are some examples of how you can identify a sound economic model versus an unsound economic model. So in a sound economic model, it shows you where your money comes from, and it is a gross figure. Gross, that means the full amount of that full commission check. It is not the net. It is not the amount of the check or the wire that you received from Keller Williams. It is the gross amount of that sale and that full commission for your side of the business. And I want all of us to pledge, you know, hand in the air. And I, Delisa Lipinski, whomever, you're not doing it. I'm just saying your first name I saw. You know, solemnly swear I will always report my gross because I treat my business like a business. And we know where the money is coming from. So that means everything is sourced, and the primary source is clear and singular. So for example, you don't say, oh yeah, Margaret, she bought a house. She was from Zillow and she knew one of my past clients and from a network. No, a primary source. If you want to add additional notes about the nuances of either how you developed the relationship or nurtured that lead, great, but there is one primary source, okay? An unsound economic model is, you know, oh, I don't know where my business is going to come from, you know, friends or family, whatever they do this year, I'll just take care of it, you know, maybe I'll buy something. I don't know. It's, you don't really know. You're not going to say our expectations and plan based on previous year's experience and the enhancements we're making to our fill in the blank 42 touch campaign,
Hey,
farm,
Bridget.
vendor program. Yes.
Oh, how are you? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
No, we can't hear
I
you.
can barely hear you.
You can't hear me?
A little bit, not really.
Oh, you guys can't hear me.
I
No,
can
I
hear
hear
you,
you,
Bridget.
Bridget. I hear
All
you
right,
loud
I
and
will,
clear, Bridget.
I will scooch in closer.
Oh, my
Can you hear me
volume is
now?
all the way up. I can't hear you.
All right, can you hear me now?
If I put you up to my ear, I can hear you.
I can hear you loud and clear.
All right. So, and we are recording it, and from the little indicators, it looks like
I'm
the
gonna log out
record-
and try to log back in.
Okay. All right, that sounds good. All right, so, the Unsound model, you don't have a target or expectation of where the business will come from, which means you don't know where the money is going to come from. So in an ideal scenario, most of you are going to be able to say, well, 45% of my business last year came from my agent to agent referral program. It is a fair expectation as we increase, that will grow with it. I expect next year it's going to be 45% again. I'm not changing my program in any way. That's, and you have some idea that yes, that's what you're going to get. But in the Unsound model, you just don't know. I don't know, could come from my farm. So, and an Unsound model, you're tracking your net and you're not tracking your gross. Okay. Number two, in Sound economic model, it shows where your money is going. You actually have a budget. You actually have expenses and a profit and loss that you review on a regular basis. And you're looking at what you've spent and you're seeing if there is a return that you would expect given the length of time and or the way that you implement that program. So, and making sure that there's at least a 4-time return on every dollar that you're spending. So that's having a sound economic model. An unsound economic model is, oh, I saw this platform while I was going through the exhibit hall at family reunion. So I signed up for 2 years. I already paid half up front. Yeah, no, I don't know. They're going to reach out to me. Is that, which of your 3 lead sources will that enhance? Well, it's going to be new, or it's really, it's pell-mell. We don't want anything to be pell-mell. We want to, on a coach's small group yesterday, we were saying, all right, with everyone this year, let's make sure that we are strategizing and implementing a plan and that we're not implementing ideas. I hope that makes, so I don't, a little bit less of the, Gina Ront said he did a golden letter. I'm doing it today. I sent it out this afternoon and I just heard about it at noon. No, we want to stop and plan and say, all right, well, what would make sense? How could we narrow down and strategically create a group that could go to where we could expect a return, where we want more growth? Many of you that are looking at either increasing your average sales price or doing more luxury sales every year, you know what I'm talking about, because we've been actively working on that in your coaching. So it's like you have a plan, you know which expenses are critical. You're not afraid to cut something off after you've given it a 9-month test period. And if you see there's not results, you don't stay attached to it. Well, I might not get that zip code again. And Numbskull at CB, they might get my zip code if I stop paying 10 grand a month, and no business. So don't be attached to something that is not giving us the return that we would expect. Sound economic model, it shows how much is left after you have had the gross come in, you have paid cost of sale, you have paid your expenses, and then you know how much is left, which is your net. Okay. The Unsound is, well, I still had money in my checking account on the 31st. So I think I'm good, or, there's not even an idea of what the net to you will be, or what the money is that you will put towards your operating expense account or capital reserves. Like, you don't have that structure, and it's just sort of like, hold on, you're about to buy a laptop, and you're like, let me check the balance in my account. Okay, I got a balance in there. So, so let's all strive to be more on the sound side, and less on the unsound side. Any questions about this? All right. And can you all hear me fairly well now? Okay, good. All right. So key areas of the economic model. You want to focus on the numbers that you must hit. Any of you that have worked with me for any length of time, I'm not a big fan of must, need, should. Those aren't my favorite words. In this instance, especially when you're looking at this, like when you're overlaying the one thing on top of MREA, that is why must is in there. And you want to really narrow down and focus on the numbers that are most critical to you achieving your one thing in your economic model. For the majority of you, that is going to be listing appointments scheduled or listing appointments gone on. Okay, or listing appointments held. That for the majority of you, that's what it will be. There's a few of you where it will be different, and we will obviously customize that for you on your coaching call. And the other thing, you want to focus on appointments. So it's very common where we'll get hung up on the lag indicators. So there's lead indicators on whether you will hit your goal, and there are lag indicators on whether you're going to hit your goal. The lead indicators are leads identified, contacts made, appointments set, appointments held. Lag indicators are accepted offers, closed deals. So one of the reasons we want to focus on lead indicators and predominantly appointments is that in order to have the number of appointments required to hit the goal, you have no choice but to lead generate at the level that's going to create that critical mass. And then once you have that number of appointments, that's when you can then focus on the conversion rates. And you can say, okay, in the first quarter, I went on 21 listing appointments. I listed 13. So then our conversation would get very deep into the nuances of your presentation. How are you closing? Are you talking yourself out of the sale? Are you, when they're ready to sign, are you going right for the signature? Like, we really get nitty gritty on that. Because in my dream world, that next quarter, we want you to say, all right, it was second quarter. So I went on 28 listing appointments, and guess what? I listed 21, right? So we want that for every 10 listing appointments you go on, we just imagine doubling your production by just increasing the number of those people that you convert. Okay. So it's not always a matter of always having to have more. If you know your weekly number of appointments to hit, focus on hitting that number and hit it as often and as early in the year as you can. And then we're going to track very intensely. Well, how many did you list? How many did you take? How many did you take? And then if there's room there, we're going to dive in. A good goal, and this is from Gary, is 75%. I will tell you, in terms of our industry on the whole, that is a rock star conversion rate. And, some agents are like, well, Bridget, I list 98% of my appointments, and the 2 I don't take are ones I don't want. And I immediately say, well, you're not going on enough appointments, and you're only going on the safe bet, right? So, these people that get all hung up on their 100% conversion rate and all that stuff, they're deluding themselves. It's very possible they're selling the same number of homes every year, with some slight variation, but it's not the recipe for growth. And everyone I coach in one way or another, I do coach a couple of you that are working on a golden handoff, opportunities, which is slightly different, but the majority of you want growth and you want an increase in profit and an increase in market share and to grow the database. So we're going to focus on the numbers particular for you that you must hit every week that you work. We're going to focus on lead indicators for most of you that will be appointments. And we're also going to focus then on the conversion rate. And we're going to just shoot for 75%. 75% means you're going on enough unmets, unknowns, referrals that are 2 people removed from you, that neighbor from 4 doors down at your listing, that you've never met before. So they aren't sure bets. And then it's going to be on that higher side because you're also working your mets. And of course, that's a higher conversion rate, usually. Okay. Everyone who's been in real estate longer than 6 months has had the, friend or sphere of influence who lists with someone else. All of us can raise our hand or both hands and a foot, and if you're in less than 6 months, just be prepared for it. Go to an experienced agent in your office and say like, oh my God, this happened to me. And they will talk you off the ledge. All right. So these are the key things. And just if anyone has further questions about that, put them in the chat and or save them for the Q&A time. And we can get into the conversation about it more after we actually do the economic model formula. Okay. So we're going to use this example of 1,000 homes sold. Don't worry, I'm giving a secondary example for 125 units sold. That's a good sort of average number of most of my clients, but I really want to go through this twice. It's very critical. Right off the bat, if you're in growth mode and you want a high profit margin, if you are any of the people I coach that shoot for 50% cost of sale and expenses and 50% net, pay attention to the next thing I'm going to say. All right. So first, you want to look at your total unit number. And at a minimum, you want 60% of those units to be listings sold and 40% to be buyer side. There's several of you. I'm thinking of Caroline Calvin. If she was on the call right now, she'd be like, Bridget, that would be reducing what I do. If you're already higher than that, if you're already selling 70% listings, 30% buyers, hallelujah, and keep doing that. But at a minute, you want to shift away from the 50-50 realm, and you definitely want to shift away from having more buyers than listings, particularly when you're looking for growth. Okay, so you can see in this example, I took a goal of 1,000 homes sold in 2022. It will be 600 listings sold, and it will be 400 buyer sides. Okay. Now, oftentimes when we are doing this specifically for you, not oftentimes, every time, we also add in the fallout rate. So, for this example, we could add out of the 600 sold, we could make it 660 and calculate the fallout rate here. For the scale of this team and the fact that people are working every single week and their market, we did not factor that in this point. And so for simplicity, we're going through it now in this fashion. Okay, but don't be surprised if we're working on yours alone and I add that in and you're like, wait a minute, why are we doing that? So we want 600 listings sold. We want 400 buyer side sold. So using a 75% listing taken to listing sold ratio, that means we need to take 800 listings. I want to tell you, because sometimes people get this backwards in their mind. So you take 600 and you divide it by 0.75. And that gives you 800. Okay. And then we know that for them to take 800 listings, we're using the 75% ratio again, that they will have to go on 1,066 listing appointments. Now, all of you know, in a dream world, they will want to accomplish that within 45 weeks. They will want to hit that 1,066 by October 31st, 2022. So everything is divided by 10. Everything is divided by 45 weeks. And they don't jeopardize their dreams, their happiness, their peace of mind by dividing by 12 or 52. That is opening the doorway for the devil to walk through. Do not do that, okay? Now, just carrying that all the way through, assuming an average sales price of 300,000 and a commission of 2.75, it will be a seller sold volume of 180 million, and it will be a gross revenue of $4,950,000. So that is the listing division. So the head of the listing division, who is also the director of sales for this particular team, those are the numbers that she is focused on every single week. Buyer division. So the buyer division, we're going to have 400 buyers sold. We again are assuming that 75% ratio of buyer agency signed to buyers sold. So they will have 534 buyer agencies signed. And in order to do that, they will have 712 buyer consultations. This is an area, you know how some areas and some teams, the listing division is a higher average sales price than the buyer side division. I actually saw a few people come in today, and I know that that is exactly your scenario, and it's a somewhat significant difference. So make sure that when you're treating your business with these divisions, you would put the appropriate price in there. On this particular team, it does run nearly identical. So, and it's not a surprise because a lot of their agents are showing their own listings and they're very listing focused. So I'm not surprised there. Where that shows up more often is with the really high-end luxury clients, where you're taking those really high-end listings, and yet your buyer agents are working with buyer leads that come from all sources, and it gives them that lower average sales price. So looking at this, we're assuming, again, the 300,000, 2.75 commission rate. It's going to be a buyer sold volume of 120 million, and it is going to be a gross revenue of 3,300,000. Isn't that fun? Okay, so now let's look at, break it down in the leads to achieve the goal. And any of you have seen Gary talk multiple times, you have heard him when he says, until you have enough leads to achieve the goal, nothing else matters. If you haven't heard him say that, go into Connect, put it in the search bar, and watch one of the videos of him talking about that. I'll see if I can dig one up after Thanksgiving, and I'll put it on our Facebook group. But he talks about it and he breaks it down. And he says, you know, a postcard design doesn't matter until you have enough leads to achieve the goal. So we know that it is 10 leads to a contract when we're looking at big data. And because we want to set ourselves up for the ultimate in success and absolutely nailing what we've set out to do, even if your conversion rate is better at this moment than 10-to-1, still operate on 10-to-1 because you're in a growth mode. Again, our subconscious is on a constant pattern of making today like yesterday. And so your mind is going to say, oh, you do better than that. You get one contract for every 6 leads that you get. So we're just going to do it by 6 and blah, blah, blah. Well, that's factoring in what got you here. You know that the cliche, what got you here is not going to get you there. Please focus on the 10 leads per sale, particularly when you're in growth mode. Okay. So we know that to have 600 sales in the listing division, we need to identify 6,000 leads that say, hey, I want to sell a property that I own in 2022. So when we break that down, that would be 116 leads identified each week. So the listing division with any listing specialists on that team, and this particular team also has an ISA department. So the combination of leads from the two rainmakers from their personal sphere, they're level 7. So, you know, if they happen to say like, oh, hey, my friend Krista is coming to town and she has an old property she's going to sell. Great. You know, that everything from that to the ISA departments, you know, identifying future seller leads or appointments, and the work and efforts of every listing specialist every week, that number needs to total 116. We also know, based on the 1,066 listing appointments needed, that we will need 21 listing appointments each week. And then this, we're going slightly into lag indicator, but not quite. The listings taken each week, we are shooting for 16 listings taken each week. Isn't that a beautiful, clear? Do you see how that could easily be turned into just a simple report? Did you hit it? Did you not? Oh, yeah, guys, we were short last week. You know, we've got to make it up. One quick note on that, which also applies to the buyer division. Remember that every week you start at 0. So let's say that this buyer, let's say this listing division and the ISAs got together and they did 2 marathon calling days, and they identified 171 leads that say they want to sell in 2022. That doesn't mean that the following Monday, they take 116 and subtract it and say, oh, look, we had an excess of 70. So we don't need 116 this week. We only need 37. No, you're just like an NFL team that wants to be in the Super Bowl. And you don't start next week's game with the excess score that brought you the win last week. You start at 0 and you go in hungry and you aim to achieve the goal, winning the game and hitting your number. Of that right there, and this is partly my theory, also from a lot of my mentors, many of whom you know, what we're talking about right here, we believe that's the key differentiator in agents that have 2 closings 1 month, 5 the next, 1 the month after that, cricket town for 2 months, 1 the month after that, nothing, 3, what? Because they're so sporadic. Ooh, I got a bunch of leads. Oh, well, let me convert them now. I won't do anything else till I get them under contract. Let me do that. Then they don't lead generate. Then they get those pending or closed and they get upset because people went with someone else. And then they, you know, they're like, I have no pipeline and I have no leads. So you start every week at 0 and you achieve your number every week. It doesn't matter how big you won the game the week before. Okay. So buyer division goals, the leads to achieve the buyer division goals are 4,000. So the leads they need to identify each week, combination again, buyer agents, ISAs, you know, personal referrals from staff members or rainmakers on the team. That number needs to be 77 each week. They must have 14 buyer consultations each week. And the goal is to have 11 buyer agencies signed every week. So for those of you that are rainmakers, just imagine, again, like you set these numbers in place, either for your division, or if you just have 1 buyer's agent or 2 for them. And the accountability every week is that little report filled out. Yes, this week I hit actually, you know, 79 leads. And I went on 15 buyer consultations, although I only got 8 signed. Now, I brought that up as that example because 1, 2, and 3, that's what we have the most control over. We still have some control over people signing documents, but that's where it starts to get slightly removed. So the key focus as someone who's mentoring, leading, or guiding someone, you really want them to nail 1, 2, and 3. And then with number 4, you want to use that as the training opportunity You know, should they do language of sales? Should they go into mega buyer coaching program, mega buyer agent? Should you role play with them more? So you can hear exactly how they're closing. Are they doing tie downs? Are they repeating and affirming? Are they future pacing for how things will go when they're showing a property, and that they're going to ask after each home, I'm going to ask you, Delisa, would you like to write an offer on this property? You know, are they doing that? You know, so we want to know how many were signed. We want to strive to get to the 16 and 11. And as long as someone is engaged, lead generating, and getting homes under contract, we're going to guide and lead them to hitting that goal. Okay.
Question, Bridget. Hi,
Yes.
Teresa. Hi there. I kind of lost you on the 75% ratio versus 1 to 10 in contract. And I'm sorry if I'm throwing you off track. You said 75% ratio for the conversion rate, but then you said 10 leads, 1 contract. Like, does that make sense? That's it. Yeah, go ahead. What's the difference between the two?
Correct. They're two different formulas. So the listing, the leads formula is truly just in the lead indicator category. It's, are you talking to enough people to identify enough leads that say they will do something in the time frame specified? And we know from tracking decades now of big data that it's typically 10 leads identified that are then followed up on, pre-qualified, you know, gone through the process, you will get 1 sale. So that is that's in the lead generation category. The 75% comes after the appointments. So this is where, when you've gone on 10 listing appointments, you will list 7.5 of them. Gary says, shoot for every 10 listing appointments you go on, you're taking 7.5 of them.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay. And then, you know, and that comes down. Now, by the way, and many of you, we've done this already. I coach a lot of people in hot sellers markets. And the reality is your listing taken to listing sold ratio. Most of you, we've been using 85%. A couple of you, we've used 90%. But again, for this example, I wanted to give a broad approach. So yes, when you know that actual number in the division calculation, then you would use your actual number. At no time do you want to go over 90% of listings taken to listing sold. Does anyone know why? It doesn't matter how hot your market is. There's always going to be a Parisa, you need to come list this house this weekend. We're getting divorced. I never want to talk to them again. Here's our attorneys. They already know, blah, blah, blah. And they go off and you do all your stuff and you get, and you're managing them and all that. And then guess what? Oh, they went away for a weekend to their nephew's wedding and they've never been so in love. And then they come back. It's like, oh, Parisa. And look at this. We put your name on the riser of the stairwell because you helped us buy this house and it's where we're building our love. Right. So that listing canceled. Someone that is so convinced their job promotion is coming through and they're moving to Omaha. They're so convinced they're getting it. And, we're just going to put it on now. We'll wait to hear from the relocation company and we'll wait for my letter. How many of you have heard that? I know many of you because we've talked about it, right? And then oops, they're closing that location, or oops, Betty Lou Bick got the promotion. They're not going, and I got it's really lateral, but they're calling it a promotion right here in town. Yeah. Okay. So never and I don't even use never often either. Never factor more than a 90% listing taken to listing sold ratio, unless you want to set yourself up for bitter tears of disappointment when you miss your goal by like 7 sales. Okay. But that's the difference. And we can go into it more if you want to clarify that more. So this is lead generation goals. And this is the actual division appointments through contracts calculations. Okay. All right. So totals. Total gross revenue from both divisions will be 8,250,000. The expenses will be 4,785,000. The net to the level 7th owners of this team will be 3,465,000. And I put the assumptions down here. So the economic model is calculated using those conversion ratios of 75% for appointment to contract and contract to close. The example also assumes 29% cost of sales and 29% expenses. So let's jump into, because I know a bunch of you are shooting for this or something close to it. I'm going to just walk through it one more time, if that's okay with you guys. And we're going to talk about someone who wants to sell 125 homes in 2022. Please remember that all of these appointments and leads identified, we want all of that complete by October 31st of 2022.
Bridget,
Right, so, yes.
sorry, question. Since the average sales price is 300, and if we're higher than that, we can pretty much assume this is going to be our model, right? Or kind of divide everything, I guess multiply everything with the average sales and then divide everything with the listing appointments, right? kind of like that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you can literally make a copy of this document for yourself and be like, and just fill in your number. Oh, my average sales price is $1.1 million. Oh, my goal is 91. So you just change the factors. And then again, and you are in one of those markets where I'd use a higher listing taken a listing sold ratio, just make sure you don't go over 9. And you just customize this to your own figures, and then you do the math. Okay. So for 125, we're assuming 60% listing sold, 40% buyer side, average sales price of 300,000, average commission of 2.75. And so that leads to, we want to sell 75 listings. In order to do that, we'll have to take 100 listings. And in order to take 100, we will have to go on 134. That will lead to a seller sold volume, gross sales volume of 22,500,000 and a gross revenue of 618,750. And then buyer division, we want 50 buyers sold. We will get 67 agencies signed. And by the way, I know some of you don't do buyer agency. That's fine. We're talking about the people that say, I am working with you. I choose you, right? We can modify that for however you do your buyer side of things. And then in order to have 67 signed, we would have to do 89 buyer consultations. In my experience, just my experience, this is not maps, this is just my experience. Those numbers are that high for this particular team based on data that we've been tracking. And very often on the buyer side, and I'm sure I'm going to see some heads nodding when I say this, it is more than that, because you need, you're going to have more consultations. Buyers can get wishy-washy, particularly in these hot seller markets, and they think, oh, let me go to the listing agent. So one of the reasons I think these numbers work for this team in particular is they are so dominant in listings. So buyers are coming to them because they know they have the listings, right? So if you're not quite at that level yet, and you're shifting buyer division off of your plate and onto some buyer agents, let's make sure on one of your calls that we really dive deep on that and look at a lot of data so we can come up with a good goal for them and make sure we're setting them up for success. So again, with this example, and I say that because even when I did this 125, in my mind, I was thinking of the team that's doing the 1,000. That's why I'm explaining myself in that way. So average sales price, 300,000, buyer sold volume of 15 million, gross revenue of 412,500. Guess what that means in terms of total revenue?
$1 million.
This was It's over $1 million. Yes, this would be MREA level production. Yeah. Okay. So that's one of the reasons why I did the 125, because sometimes, so let's say your average sales price is around 300 or 275. Sometimes people get in their minds like, oh, well, I can't gross $1 million unless I'm in a market where the average sales price is, 875. It's not true. You saw those numbers, and we're going to break it down even further here. So listing division goals, the leads to identify the 75 sales will be 750, again, for lead generation. The leads identified each week, 17. Listing appointments each week, 4. Listings taken each week, 3. And this assumes 44 weeks. Okay. Buyer division goals, leads to achieve 500, 12 leads identified each week, 2 buyer consultations each week, and 1.5 buyer agencies signed each week. So that, now I used a higher assumption of weeks with the 1,000, because the 1,000 is such a large team. There's always someone working every single week. I still didn't use 52. I'm pretty sure we used 48. Okay. All right. So, and then here's the totals. Again, I think that was you, Parisa, whomever said over $1 million. Yes. So the total gross revenue, we'd be celebrating. One of you, I don't think you're on the call today. So I track that stuff pretty intensely because I'm always so excited every year when someone grosses over $1 million for the first time in particular, or, over $1.5 million the first time, over 2. The last several years, I've had people that have grossed over 3 for the first time, including this year. So I love that. And I watch it and I watch it. I watch it like a lioness in the grass, watching the water buffalo to go attack. Right. And so this one client in Seattle, she closed a deal and I saw that it put her over the $1 million, and I called her that day and I was like, you know what happened today? She's like, no. I made her guess. She still didn't know. So it is exciting. And then when she realized it, she was pretty excited. So just know this is within your reach. If any of you want to do this on one of your next calls, let's run the numbers and see what it would take. Okay. For your market and where your business is right now. And let's just make a plan for it. And this is all broken down in more detail on page 157 of MREA. And that is this section. I don't have my book here with me because I'm in a hotel room today. But it is right in that section. It's like, 150, 153 to like 159. But go in there, and if you haven't read that in a while, reread it again. Yes, a few things have been tweaked on the budget model, but the economic model has stayed the same. And this works, by the way, no matter where you sell. And it's based on big data, not just from KW, but even from other entities that really closely track the data of agents in growth mode, and selling at a many different levels, but at high levels of sales. Okay. And then this one, the expenses, it was a little bit different because many things are scalable. So if you noticed with the 1,000 sales, we used 29 and 29. This example, we assumed 31% cost of sales and 30% expenses. We don't need to break that down right now. However, be aware, I do have a chart that holds fairly true that we can reference based on what you're projected to sell. And we can really plan even to that level of detail. Okay. So let me, those are the main things I wanted to go over, and I'll say just a couple things over. Figure out which of these numbers are most important to you. For nearly everyone I coach, leads identified per week and number of appointments sets the stage for everything. Now, yes, there's other things we're working on. We're working on, what to expect now that you're listed system. We're working on improving our hiring skills and finding talent. We're working, we work on other things, but the more you keep your focus on those key numbers, you will achieve whatever you set out to do. So any questions around any of this?
Can you just quickly repeat lead identified per week? What was the second thing per week we have to concentrate on? It was the conversion? No, it was the appointment.
Appointments, yes. Yeah, for nearly everyone, it's leads identified each week, appointments each week, and the conversion rates. Yeah, that's where we can nuance things, and you can really achieve. It's where you can, and by the way, this also ripples out and impacts everything. Like we talked about, if we have a buyer's agent that is making enough contacts, identifying enough leads, going on enough appointments, not getting enough agency signed, voila, we know where to train them, right? Let's say that we have a buyer's agent that falters on identifying enough leads. They do go on enough appointments and they convert at a high rate. Well, there we go. We know where to train them. We need to train them on lead generation and capturing information and getting referral, right? So it helps you be a better leader. You know, the creating success through others. We talked about it last week with the org model. You know, when you think about it, everyone on your team literally chose you. They all had other choices, by the way, and they chose you. And they placed their financial well-being, their mental health, their mindset, their peace of mind, their future in your hands. So this is a way where you can, with data and laser focus, you can actually go in and treat what's holding them back and then help them be more successful. Okay. And then, you know, and then you're creating that success through others. It's a win-win and everyone's happy. And then you're inviting me to come out and you're taking me to your favorite restaurant for dinner because your team's doing so great. Oh my goodness. So that's any other questions about that? Or anything we discussed so far? So I'd love 3 ahas. So I'd like for 3 people to share what they're taking away from today, what has stood out to them from this conversation, and what you'd like to take action on.
I can go. Hi there.
Okay.
So my aha and my action will be, I need to focus on my buyer's agent's numbers.
Yes, right. And from a way of wanting them to succeed. So do you see how this is different, right, Parisa? Because like it's based on results and examining it and saying like, well, how can I actually help them do more than they're doing? So it's really based in that success.
Yes, and then starting
yeah.
it, you know, every week is a brand new week. I mean, I think that's amazing. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. And then we have Nina in the chat said, call, script those calls. Yes, I will agree with that wholeheartedly. And let's get one more.
I think for me is just really dialing into how many leads I'm going to need, because I think I was undershooting the number of leads that I was going to need for listings and buyers taken.
Right. So good. I mean, that is, I know Roger isn't on here today, but Roger is one of my clients that's been in the business. I think it's now like 26 years. And when he really honed in 3 years ago on leads identified every single week and not letting a work week, knowing that he factored in time off and training, he wouldn't let a week go by without making sure if there was a gap, he covered it. And he started at 0 every week. Even his wife around November was like, what are you doing with your business? Because his business blew right up within 60 days. We all know the bold law. I see it behind Margaret's head. What you focus on expands. So the redundancy built into that program, it keeps your focus so intensely on those leads you did find that your conversion rate goes up naturally and fewer people fall through the cracks. So good. I'm glad that stuck out for you. Lisa, did you have one more question?
I wanted to know when your MAPS clients were going to get their Excel spreadsheet, because I'd rather do this all in the thing going forward.
That's right. Yes. So that is, I would say, you know what? I'm going to make a declaration. I'm making a declaration that's being recorded in front of all of you. Okay. You can all type this in the chat.
Mhm.
Someone who has a calendar open, tell me what the Monday is the week after Thanksgiving. So not that like November 20, whatever, that December, what is that?
6th.
It will be December 6th.
Okay.
Write it down. Part of the delay is it's going to be even more integrated so that you're entering things once in one place and it's rippling out to all, whatever you want it to go to. And then we've also, and Lisa, you're part of the, there were others as well, but you're one of the people that are creating some of the other changes. We're going to have more visuals. So there's going to be more pie charts. There's going to be the listing versus buyer, whatever division you have, your divisions will have the bar graph. We're adding in lead generation activity for team members, if that's something that you want. But it's still obviously going to be able to be customized to you guys, but we're just really smoothing it out, polishing it, reducing it down and making it talk to each other more than it does. Okay.
Thank you.
And if it's ready early, I'll make an announcement and say, we have a premature delivery of a spreadsheet.
I'll
And,
beta
it'll be like a
for you.
happy bonus. Okay. Well, guys, remember next week, no regular calls. I'm driving across country on the I-70 in an all-electric vehicle with my 19-year-old, and we are hoping that it doesn't turn into National Lampoon's Electric Car Christmas Vacation or Thanksgiving Vacation. Hopefully it will all be smooth. I'll be driving through some states where I'm going to have some free time on my hands. I won't mention any states. You guys can fill in which ones those might be. So if you do have a quick question or you want to run something past me, call. If I have reception, I'm certainly happy to, go over some things with you. And I want all of you to have a really great Thanksgiving, and just come back ready to roll and ready to hit that 15% for January 1st. And we'll put the finishing touches on any business planning and just rock and roll. Register for family reunion if you haven't. If you hate doing stuff like that, send an email to me and Keen will register you. If you have a dietary restriction, just put Keen, register me, luxury agent, no dairy, and he'll just do it, right? But make sure you get that registration in. One last note on that. Even if you're not sure if you're going, register for in-person. I want you all to capture that. And you are able, now that we're getting back to like real life, you're able to transfer your ticket if for some reason you do not use it. Some people in the past have gifted it to, someone who, it was a great gift for them at their market center. Some people have gifted it to people in their downline. And then also please be there. I am doing a big party on the 18th, which is the night before it begins. So if possible, be there by midday on the 18th so you can get situated and come over. And I guess, unless anyone has any final thoughts, I think we can wrap up for today. You will be getting, this video will be posted and I'll send you the slides as well. All right, anything else?
Thank you so much. Thanks for all you do for us.
Thank you guys for coming, and happy Thanksgiving.
Thanks.
Get
Drive
out
safe.
there
Happy
and
Thanksgiving, everyone.
Happy
keep taking
Thanksgiving.
listings.
Bye-bye.
All right, talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.